All right, welcome everybody. We got a great seminar today. We're going to talk about football recruiting. Now, today's seminar is going to be explosive. I want to make sure if we have people in the chat that you can ask questions anywhere you are about football recruiting. It's important to understand this process. And today, with transfer portals, with everything in high school recruiting, where high school recruits have been somewhat minimized in the recruiting process, we're going to go into depth into helping you to understand a little bit more about the football recruiting process in 2024. This recruiting process is different than anything you've seen even just 2 years ago. With the transfer portal, NIL, and the emphasis on winning now and the coaches being fired more readily, the recruiting process has changed dramatically. So it's important to make sure that you understand everything you need to understand with respect to the recruiting process. Now, I just want to make sure everybody can hear me. You're welcome to get into the chat and ask any questions. Glad to answer it. Hopefully you all can hear me very well. And we go through. My name is Coach Schuman. I am the owner, founder of NUC Sports, which we started way back in 2005, running showcases and camps, originally one event, but around the country. And our objective was to help athletes get recruited. From the time we started doing that to now, so many things have changed. I've also been a high school football coach for 20 years. I played Division I football at the University of Connecticut. I was a scholarship athlete. I was an elite top-tier athlete out of high school. I've coached for a long time. I've coached, and I've also been an NFL agent for 6 years. I was an NFL agent where we placed dozens of players into NFL camps and had multiple players sign multi-million-dollar contracts with the NFL. So this is an important thing to understand from a recruiting standpoint, that a lot of the things that you think you know about recruiting, or you have heard maybe from a neighbor or someone that's gone through it, just in recent time period, has completely changed, and you have to understand what is going on now in the recruiting process. If you don't understand it, you will be left out in the cold. And we have a program that we work with athletes that I'll give you the opportunity to become a part of later. You can see it in the bottom of my bio here, our D1 promo, but we also do it for transfer athletes as well. And then we even have an emergency program for 2024 athletes. But this is important to understand, that if you don't know what's going on in the football recruiting process standpoint right now, whether it's high school, whether you're in the transfer portal, or you're a younger athlete, underclassmen 2027, 2028, even 2029, 2026, and then 2025 athletes on the verge. So many of you have been left in the dark and don't understand the process. I am going to unveil and make sure you understand all the important things that are necessary from a recruiting process standpoint. So make sure you get pencils, pens, whatever you need to write down to understand it, because I'm not posting any kind of boring PowerPoint. I'm going to talk to you directly to make sure you understand this in a timely and an important manner, so you know what's going on. If you don't know what's going on in the recruiting process right now, you will be left in the dust. So let's start from the very beginning. Okay, for many years, high school football recruiting was the key component for college coaches going out and recruiting players. That was how I got recruited. That was how the vast majority, up until a few years ago with the transfer portal, almost everybody got recruited through high school. Okay, and that was the key element for getting recruited through the high school recruiting process. Working with the high school football coach, working with possibly some outside parties, and then also making sure that we understand where they are from a transcript standpoint. That part has radically changed, and I'll touch on it a little bit different. But even more so than the high school football radically changed, the JUCO and junior college area has changed even more dramatically because of the transfer portal. So let's understand what's going on and what's needed now today, and why has this changed a movement away from high school football recruiting, a movement even farther away for athletes that are JUCO athletes being able to get recruited, and what happens with the transfer portal and NIL. Okay, first and foremost, I don't know why I have this. There we go. All right, first and foremost, let's understand the thing that has changed everything in recruiting, and that is called the transfer portal. The transfer portal is essentially an avenue for current college athletes to go in and have a one-time transfer without any penalties, okay? The ability to transfer to another school. Okay, they don't have to sit out. They could stay at the same level. They could stay at the same conference. They can move up. That's what's going on in the transfer process. That's what the transfer portal essentially is. Okay, now the transfer portal itself is a critical key component because it is actually a portal with listing of all the athletes that are available to be recruited by a college coach, all levels. Now, the important part about the transfer portal that is really, really mysterious to athletes is how do they get picked up from the transfer portal? Why do athletes get picked up in the transfer portal? And what college coaches are looking for in a transfer portal? We'll talk about that in a little bit, but transfer portal is the single biggest thing that has changed recruiting. Okay. The second thing is NIL, which is name, image, and likeness. That is the ability to essentially have a player that is getting paid through quote unquote sponsorships, utilizing their name, image, and likeness, and they're getting money to be able to play at that school with respect because of their name, image, and likeness. Originally designed for someone, they're selling a shirt of a player and it says number 10, it says my name on the back, for me to be able to get a percentage of that. That is not exactly what's happening. There are things called collectives. Colleges have collectives, a group of people, basically boosters, that put money into a fund, essentially almost a hedge fund with no return, but a hedge fund that allows them to pay players to come to their university and play them. The college coaches have nothing to do with it per se, but it does have an impact on who they can go and get. It has an impact on the available funds for players that they can go and get. And that's created different tiers in the recruiting process and the different levels of players. So you could have, for example, a quarterback that is through the collective is paid $1 million, through a car dealership paid $50,000. There's a lot of different things. You may have seen the Utah example, where their collective got every single player a truck that was on scholarship. These are all things that the collective can do, but outside parties as well. Okay, companies can pay for a player to come to the school. And in some cases, there are well-written contracts, and some cases there aren't. In some cases, there are street agents that are involved. In some cases, there are real agents involved, meaning NFL-certified agents that maybe are hoping to get a guy down the line. They're doing NIL deals for them, taking a commission of it, okay? And that's how those agents make money from it. Be careful of any NIL deal you sign and any deal you sign with an agent, because those are important, because there are ramifications to that. And you want everything in concrete, in set in stone, in writing, in order to do NIL deals. So do not do anything without that. Okay, so we've talked about transfer portal, we've talked about NIL, we've talked about football recruiting. How do coaches find out about players? Well, here's what makes the transfer portal very easy for college coaches to find players. Those players are put into the transfer portal. Yes, there's thousands of names in there, but their name is put into it. So there is a promotional aspect that helps from a recruiting standpoint. The The top tier players don't have to worry about that. The top tier players, once they go into the transfer portal, essentially will get picked up. But there's many, many 1,000+ players that are great players in the portal that through different means may fit in a different place, and they may need help in promoting from that standpoint. We have a thing. You go to myfootballcamps.com/transfer to see more about our transfer portal program. We also have a VIP program. We will work with athletes directly. So it's important to get your name. So if you're not a high-profile name, you'll probably need some help, or you'll probably need the ability to promote yourself to get to a college coach, and you need some verified people like myself and Mike Farrell, who we work with, who've been in the industry for 20+ years, evaluating athletes, and we work on programs just for this. But you need to be able to get your name out there, and Twitter is one of the biggest areas that most college coaches look at because of the easy ability to DM coaches. But how does this all work? Well, it's important to understand that first and foremost, high school football recruiting is severely affected by the transfer portal. Why is that the case? The transfer portal allows, college coaches to pick up a player that potentially has already played at the college level and is also maybe a year, 2 or 3 years older than another player who is physically bigger, stronger, maybe faster, and have the ability to have played in big-time competition. Even if it's at lower levels, Division II or Division III, if they were a standout at those levels, they can essentially move up all the way up to the FBS, depending on what their skill sets and size are. This is important to understand. So when high school parents, parents of high school athletes are trying to figure out the recruiting process, why isn't my kid getting recruited? This is why the pecking order now is transfer portal athletes, number 1, number 2, high school football athletes, and number 3, JUCO. And JUCO is number 3 because we can get a 19, 20-year-old already playing in a transfer portal. Why do I have to get a guy from JUCO that already has baggage? So this is potentially baggage. This is an important thing to understand, and this is an important reason for you to make sure that you get involved in the recruiting process, getting your name out there, and getting help to do so if you are not a 4 or 5-star athlete. So it's important to understand they're going to look, if possible, to build their program with a combination of transfer portal athletes and high school players, depending on what's happening with their program and their long-term strategy as a coach. They will then decide how they're going to do that. The most famous thing, obviously, that people have seen is Deion Sanders, who totally turned over his roster. I'm not saying whether it's good or bad, but basically his whole roster is transfer portal players, and has already openly said that he'll take 4 and 5 high school players a year. If there are 25 high school players, 25 players taken in scholarship and only 4 or 5, that is less. That's 20% or less high school players getting a scholarship. Essentially, right now, over a third of the players taken are transfer portal athletes, and will be as high as 50% or more by 2025. That is an important thing to understand. Half the players getting scholarships will be transfer portal players. So when you see numbers of, I'm in the state of New Jersey, 50 athletes from New Jersey, let's say, signing Division I scholars, essentially by 2025, half of those 50 will be transfer portal athletes and maybe more. Why? Because college coaches are getting fired, expected to win earlier, and getting fired if they don't do so. Okay, so they're going to go naturally to where they have an opportunity to win now. Collectives have an influence to take a better player now. They're more willing to pay a player that has proven themselves on the field versus paying somebody else. Essentially, it is free agency with no ramifications. Second thing with transfer portal is you can transfer a second time if you were a graduate transfer, and you've seen that most recently with the Notre Dame quarterback, but graduate transfers have the opportunity as well to transfer again. So this is an opportunity for players that are currently in college that somehow become stars at lower levels or are buried on a depth chart at a super high level to move to a different place to have an opportunity. Again, I'm not saying whether it's good or bad. I'm explaining how the situation is. Okay. And we have to understand how the situation is. Now, high school football players, this is for you. High school football parents, this is for you. Now, do you understand the competitive landscape that you are dealing with? You now need to understand how you can go and get recruited. The question is, wow, if the opportunities are less, and for many, many years, I used to always pitch that football was the greatest opportunity. It still is, but you're going to have to go where you have the ability to go from a recruiting standpoint. Athletes who signed D1 FBS program scholarships, some of those will drop a level, group of 5 level, FCS level. FCS level may drop to D2. D2 may drop to D3. Okay. What does that do? That creates a situation where there is less opportunities for the high school football athlete. So you have to if you're doing well, get yourself out there more. What are some strategies you can use? Number one tool that you must use in order to get recruiting is Twitter. You must establish relationships with college coaches on Twitter by sending them your film, explaining why, figuring out how to show your film in a positive avenue, getting analysts respected like myself, Mike Fowler, maybe some others that are out there to say that look at your film with an objective view and could say positive things, hopefully, about you as an athlete that could point out the characteristics of those athletes. That is a key component, pointing out the characteristics that you have that makes you a recruitable athlete. Utilizing Twitter to point those things out, taking those third parties and putting it and sending out to those college coaches. They may say, hey, Coach Schuman knows what he's talking about. They may say, I don't, but you want to know that is out there. They all respect me. They respect Mike Farrell, my partner on this. They respect us from where we've been in the industry. Most of these guys have come to our programs. They know us. All right. So that's important. You want to have third parties like that can help, that people who see and break down film all the time give an analyst approach to it and help you understand and help those coaches understand the good things about you as a player and see if they agree. So Twitter is an important avenue to do that. Instagram has become somewhat of a powerful tool to do that. Email is very difficult to reach college coaches. You can use that. It's a tool, but you must target individually your emails. If you mass email, it's probably going to go to spam. If you target individually and you find the right person, you can do it. The other avenue that is often overlooked, and I think it has to be done by the player, not the parent, but it's often overlooked, is calling up the recruiting coordinator and or / the position coach. I always say Wednesday night is a great night to do it. That used to be the big recruiting night. Obviously, now they're recruiting 24/7, but there you have to pick a night that you go and reach out to coaches, leave messages on their voicemail, introduce yourself, make a video about yourself, talking about what you're looking to be able to do, couple that with your highlights so they know that you're someone that can not just go to the university, but can thrive in this environment. Maturity is a big thing for high school football players. Why would I take a college player over a high school player? Maturity. High school players still think that you could, unless you're a 4 or 5 star, do not do this. If you're 4 or 5 star and you have 25 offers, yes. High school athletes still think they can put all the hats out, choose one hat, and think college coaches are going to be happy. They'll just take a transfer portal prospect who gets an offer, makes a decision, and goes. As a high school player, you have to become much more mature in the process. You have to understand what you need to do in order to get recruited. So reaching out is a good thing. Going to junior days and meeting college coaches is a big deal for high school recruits. Going on campus and working out for them. You can't choose a million schools, but you got to choose schools that are interested in you, 4 or 5 schools that are interested in you. Go to those places. You must go to showcases and camps, as many as you can. I used to say, hey, choose a few. You got to get to as many as you can. If you can play 7-on-7, and if your high school coaches don't think that's a good thing, that is a mistake. You have to be involved with higher level competition that shows your level of maturity, okay? And stats at a high school level are not that important. At the transfer portal level, your production is very important, okay? And I recently went through this. I just did a small sample study of Texas high school football players from a certain year, and I did a national study on high school football quarterbacks, and I used things like touchdown interception ratio, yards passing, and the truth was, as I went through it, the only indicator it showed had a lot more guys sign scholarships was incredibly extreme touchdown to interception ratio. And just to say this to you, to say this is how good these players were. I only took players that had a 10-1 or higher touchdown to interception ratio. And some of the very top players, including Heisman candidates, were in that group. Now, we're talking 10-1. We're talking if you throw 20 touchdown passes, you only have 2 interceptions. Those are the players that were getting opportunities, okay? There are other players that were, but I was just taking that sample size from quarterbacks to give you a level of extreme level that you have to really, how good you have to be statistically to have an opportunity. And you still need the height, right height, size, and all those kind of things in order to be recruited. Speed is an essential thing. You have to be able to run like the college guys run in order to be able to be recruited in all positions now. Positions like tackle, which are at a premium, left tackle, right tackle. The defensive ends are so fast coming off the edge. You cannot be an over obese lineman. You've got to be able to quick. Now, guards are different, but left tackles and right tackles, you got to be tall, you got to be long, and you've got to be fast. All right, essentially a tight end that's outgrown themselves. You've got to understand what's needed for your position. You have to be able to reach out to coaches, develop relationship, and you have to have third parties that are verifiable. Third parties are becoming more and more important. Not just third parties like myself, but there are different agency groups that send information to college coaches that will say these players are ranked X, Y, and Z. Okay, so it's important to understand that and be able to get that information into those hands, okay? You have to build relationships. You have to have relationships with people who have relationships to be able to get that information in the hands of people that can evaluate you, all right? No one can tell anybody to take a player, but you want to be able to get evaluated in front of other people. That's an important part of the recruiting process. So we talked about Twitter. We talked about transfer portal. Talked about NIL. I want to talk about what you have to do as a high school player to put yourself in a positive light. Number one, you cannot be immature and get recruited, okay? I'm not saying you can't be a kid. I'm saying you cannot be immature unless you are a top tier 4 or 5 star, okay? And even those guys have lost scholarship offers. Number two, you have to make a commitment to a school relatively early if you get offers because they can go away. I know of numerous instances of high school football players that had 5 to 10 offers that didn't commit to a place, that didn't visit any places, strung people along, and ended up with 0 or going to a lower level. It's important to understand how the recruiting process works. Number was it 3 or 4? You have to understand you're competing with transfer portal athletes. So you have to showcase your unique skills, develop your relationships, develop who you are, and become the very best player you can because you're competing not just with kids in high school, but kids in college right now. So you have to go and make sure that you prove yourself from an athlete standpoint. Parents, everything that you think you know, throw it out. And everything that you think can happen, being recruited late, it's not going to happen at a high level. Finding someone discovering your kid, he's not going to get discovered unless he is literally the best player, okay? He is not going to get discovered. You have to be actively working to help him get discovered and work with people that can do that. You can check out myfootballcamps.com/D1 promo if you're interested in that. That is ways to be able to get yourself out there and get recruited. We also have a VIP program. If you're interested in that, you have to DM me. You have to qualify for that in order for us to work with you. Again, even with these other programs, you have to qualify. You could also go to our camps and see if you qualify by doing very well. Number 4, listen, high school camps, college coaches, other than maybe D3 coaches or low-level D2 or NAI, they're not coming to a showcase or camp, okay? And the truth is, if you're expecting that, you're crazy You haven't done your research. You don't know what you're doing. You probably shouldn't even be in the recruiting process if you don't know how it works. Stop asking camps and showcases in the spring, are college coaches going to be there? Yeah, there probably will be, and they're probably going to be Division III coaches. All right. You have to do well there so the college coaches find out about you and then invite you to their campus. That's how it works. The rare super top tier athlete gets an offer out of camp. You have to build a resume. Building your resume is the key to this process. So it's important to understand and do those kind of things. Great question here by Marion Derbyshire. I'll show it here. Great question. How do we find out about junior days? Well, first of all, you have to get invited to junior days. Technically, they can't per se turn you down, but they may move you to a day that other guys aren't there. But you can go right on their site, fill out a questionnaire. You have to start to get recruited by them in order to go to junior days. You could reach out to the program, their recruiting coordinator, find out when those days are, send your film to them, and see if they will invite you. I would work with people like myself and Mike Farrell to help you get your name out there. If they don't know who you are, it's going to be hard to get invited to junior days. You could have your high school coach reach out on your behalf as well. If you play for a 7-on-7 program, or you have a third party, they can reach out as well. Okay. But you can do it and send your film, develop a relationship on Twitter, go to their college camps. Those are all part of getting invited to junior days and part of that process. Please feel free to ask any more questions on here, because we want to make sure that you are fully informed as we get to the end of this process. Please ask any questions you have about the recruiting process in the chat. I will post it and then answer that question for you. It is critical that you know what you are doing. Finally, parents, money. This has been a thing that I often get. I don't have money, okay? Or someone says that they don't want to pay for something. They're looking for an NIL deal. Until you've been a 4 or 5-star multiple athlete, high level in a certain position, you're not getting a high level NIL deal. And it's important to understand that an NIL deal is the initial money is going to go to the very best, most important players deemed at the school, okay? Quarterback, maybe receiver, some of those other positions. All right, so you're not going to get huge NIL deals unless you're in those positions. These deals where you get 10% commission, I see these all the time. Like, you can call yourself getting an NIL deal, but it's not an NIL deal. That's just someone leveraging you. You got an affiliate there, and you got to still promote it. So it's important to understand that. Now, and thank you very much, Ernest. I'm glad that you enjoy to save this live. Make sure you save this, listen to it when you get an opportunity, because subscribe, you can really get the information you need from a recruiting process standpoint. Okay, great question coming in here. How can I be seen as a freshman started by colleges? Again, we talked about this earlier. You have to reach out to them on Twitter. College coaches cannot, if you're an underclassman, cannot contact you until your junior year, cannot contact you directly, but you have to get the information in their hands. They can't contact your coach and offer you that way, but you've got to reach out on Twitter. You've got to leverage the services that can help you get your name out there. You've got to attend showcase camps. You've got to get on college camps to be able to do that. If you get invited to your junior day, do that. These are avenues to be able to get your name out there. Another great question is coming in here, and I want to answer this one. Develop relationships with Coach Schuman. Is this tagging them in a post? Great question, Mr. Darby. So you have to be careful with tagging them on a post. All right. I see tagging done all the time. I get tagged on a million different things. All right. You have to be careful blindly tagging. The key is very simply to, if their DMs aren't open, to send an @ message to them saying, hey, my name is John Smith. Here's my film. Can you open your DMs to me so I can send you more about myself? That's the first step, okay, in that process. You may have to do that step 15 times. They may never get back to you, but you have to figure out which guy in the staff will, which guy has their DMs open, who you can send your information to. And if they're interested, they're going to do their best to get you information on the school, get you invited on campus, get you invited to camp. And they may communicate with your coach. That'll show real level of interest. You may get handwritten letters if it's real level of interest, or they may contact a third party that you work with, which happens often. We get reached out to and say, hey, what do you think about this player? Okay. But you have to do that, and you have to be able to do it blindly. I wouldn't go crazy tagging coaches all the time on everything every single day. That's just going to get you blocked. You don't want to get blocked in the process. You want to be smart in how you reach out to them. But you can tag them occasionally, but I would really try to work to get into their DMs. It's all about the DMs. If you can get into the DM, get the information in there, that's the way to do it. And you're welcome. I appreciate you asking the questions. It takes guts to ask the question. You need to get the information that you need. Feel free to ask any questions in here. If you have questions about how we can help you, myfootballcamps.com/D1 promo, myfootballcamps.com/D1 /transfer for transfer portal athletes. If you're a 2024 athlete, you're up against it. If you're interested in really getting hand-holding from me and Mike Farrow, we can do a VIP program. We'll reach out to the coaches for you, but you have to qualify. We don't take everybody. Okay, in all these programs, if we get a film of an athlete that we don't think we can help, we're going to refund you. We don't want to work with you. We want to work with athletes that we feel we can help, that will understand the process and know how it all works. All right. The algorithms of social media, the better you do social media with your how well you do it at camp, people you follow, how you get your information out there, how you put your film out there, having your Twitter up to date. That's important, because when coaches look at it, they get a quick glance at everything and see what you have in there, and then you move up in their algorithm. People who you follow, like myself, or people that are influencers in that industry, are important, because a lot of college coaches follow us. You'll then be able to move up with your film in their algorithm. I hope this information was helpful. Go to myfootballcamps.com/D1 promo. It's right down here in the bottom, and we'll be glad to help you. Hopefully, those of you who were on this webinar, I hope this information was helpful for you. Solid 30 minutes of information that you can't get anywhere. My name is Coach Schuman. I'm at Coach Schuman, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Okay, please feel free to reach out to me, and I will answer any questions you have.